It was July, 1947. Something fell from the sky. The military scrambled. The newspapers screamed, "Flying saucer," and then silence. This is the story of Roswell, as it happened. The storm came in the early hours, fast, hard, and loud. Lightning cracked over the lonely mesas like divine gunfire, shaking the dry bones of the desert awake. Rain peppered the wide, cracked earth, and thunder rolled across the cattle pastures that stitched their way through the Foster Ranch. Beneath a dark sky, stitched with purple veins of light, Mac Brazel rolled over in his bunk, listening. Out here, storms had their own voices, and tonight sounded different, deeper somehow. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands, thinking, that wasn't thunder. He heard it again. A metallic whine, followed by an unnatural crash, brief, sharp, and echoing. The dogs barked, the cattle stirred. Then, silence. By dawn, the rain had dried into steam, the desert reclaiming its quiet. Mac saddled up and rode out, the leather creaking beneath him. As he crested the northern ridge, something glittered in the morning sun, strange and out of place. He dismounted slowly, approaching the debris field with wary boots, crunching on sage and stone. The ground was littered with fragments, silver foil-like material that refused to crease, thin wooden beams with strange purplish symbols etched along their sides, and something resembling rubber, though it was tougher than any weather balloon he'd ever seen. Mac crouched and picked up a shard. It was impossibly light, but when he tried to bend it, it sprung back to shape like metal with a mind of its own. He didn't know what to make of it, but he knew it didn't belong here. Mac kept quiet for a day, then two, but strange things were happening. His radio picked up odd signals. The local animals wouldn't go near the site. Even his neighbors, tough old ranchers, claimed their compasses spun in circles near the debris field. Finally, on July the 7th, Mac loaded some of the wreckage into his truck and made the drive into Roswell. He stopped at the sheriff's office first. Then came the phone call that would ignite a storm. Sheriff George Wilcox didn't know what the hell he was looking at, but he knew someone in uniform should see it. He called the Roswell Army Airfield. Major Jesse Marcel arrived that afternoon. Tall, square-jawed, and smart, Marcel had earned his stripes in the intelligence corps. He'd seen V-2 rockets in Europe and picked through the debris of fallen Nazi aircraft. But what lay in the back of Mac's truck was different. He said little, made notes, and asked Mac to take him to the site. By sunset, Marcel and a second officer, Captain Sheridan Cavett, stood over a field of impossible wreckage. Marcel would later describe it as not of this world. But that night, he said nothing, just quietly gathered pieces, placed them into canvas sacks, and loaded them into the back of his car. He didn't return to base immediately. Instead, he drove home. He wanted his family to see it. A press release hit the Roswell Daily Record like dynamite. RAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. The world changed. By noon, the Associated Press had picked it up. Headlines buzzed across the country. People stared skyward. Radio announcers breathlessly speculated about visitors from another world. But even as the ink dried, the backpedal began. General Roger Ramey, stationed at Fort Worth Army Airfield in Texas, summoned Marcel and the wreckage. By the time photographers arrived, the strange foil and beams were gone. In their place was the crumpled husk of a weather balloon and a standard radar reflector. The new press release was dry and clinical. No flying disc, just a misidentified weather balloon. Marcel posed beside the balloon with a forced smile. Back in Roswell, the townspeople whispered. Mac Brazel vanished for several days. When he returned, he looked tired, nervous. His story changed. The debris was nothing special, he said now. Just rubber and sticks. Nothing worth talking about. But people remembered what he said before the military came knocking. For 30 years, Roswell faded from the spotlight. Other things captured America's attention. Sputnik, Vietnam, Watergate. The Cold War intensified. The space race took off. But Roswell slept. Until 1978. That year, nuclear physicist turned ufologist Stanton Friedman tracked down Jesse Marcel. Retired now, Marcel sat in his home, older, slower, but still sharp. He told Friedman what he'd told no one else. What I saw out there was not from this earth. Friedman listened. He scribbled. He began digging. Soon, others followed. William Moore, Charles Berlitz, Kevin Randall, Don Schmidt. Together, they gathered affidavits from dozens of locals, ranchers, nurses, morticians, even former military personnel. Stories began to resurface. Bodies, small, frail, not human, hauled from a second crash site near Socorro. A hangar, covered windows, guards with drawn weapons. A nurse who saw the bodies and vanished. A child's memory of men in black suits threatening her father. A chain of whispers too loud to ignore. In the 1990s, the story broke nationally again. A congressman from New Mexico, Stephen Schiff, demanded answers. He pushed the Air Force to open its archives. In 1994, the Pentagon responded. The wreckage, they said, came from a classified project, Project Mogul. During the early days of the Cold War, the US had launched high-altitude balloons fitted with sensitive microphones to detect Soviet nuclear tests. One of these, Flight 4, had gone down near Roswell. The strange debris, balloon reflectors and sound sensors. The bodies, not aliens, but anthropomorphic test dummies dropped from high-altitude aircraft for crash survival studies, many years after the Roswell event, but misremembered, they said. It was all a misunderstanding, a collision of memory and myth, but not everyone was convinced. In the years that followed, Roswell became more than an event. It became a brand. The city erected billboards. Welcome to Roswell, UFO capital of the world. A museum opened. Tourists flocked in. Conventions, book signings, film crews. Roswell wasn't just a story. It was our story. About trust. About fear. About our place in the universe. Presidents were asked about it. Clinton joked, if the Air Force had retrieved bodies, they didn't tell me. Obama smiled and deflected. Trump grinned. I know some very interesting things about Roswell. I can't tell you. The ambiguity made it stronger. New voices joined the conversation. Luis Elizondo, formerly of the Pentagon's AATIP program. Navy pilots shared radar footage. Congress held hearings. Something was in the skies, they said. Something unknown. And always, the spectre of Roswell loomed. Was it the first, or just the best remembered? Today, Hangar 84 still stands. The original debris is long gone, if it was ever there. But the myth remains, hovering in the desert air like heat mirage. You can visit the museum, hold replicas of the foil, read sworn statements, watch grainy films of supposed autopsies. You can even stand on the ridge where Mac Brazel first spotted the wreckage, where something fell from the sky, whether man-made or otherwise. You can choose what you believe. Because the Roswell story isn't just about what happened. It's about how we remember it. How stories grow, mutate, attach themselves to history like barnacles on a ship's hull. It's about what happens when the official story changes and ordinary people start to whisper. The truth about Roswell may never be known. Not fully. Perhaps it was a balloon. Perhaps it was a visitor. Perhaps, most likely, it was something in between. A collision of real secrecy and collective imagination. But one thing is certain. In that summer of 1947, something fell from the sky. And in the decades since, Roswell has become our mirror. We look into it and see our own doubts, hopes, and wonder. And still, the question hangs in the air, fragile, shining, unresolved. What if it wasn't ours?